Welcome back. My name is Chris, and in this video, I want to talk to you about NetSuite support cases. Support cases are unique records in NetSuite that basically allow you to have and provide a customer service functionality to your clients. And in fact, if you want any kind of example of how that works, if you've ever had to communicate to NetSuite support as a client of NetSuite, they use the same support cases for their own ticketing system. So that functionality is really the same that you would then have with your own clients in terms of the look and feel of it. So with that basic concept in mind, let's now jump into the system and take a look at support cases. All right, so here we are in the system, and first things first, how would we go about configuring support cases? We're gonna come up here to Setup, we're gonna come down here to Support, and there's quite a few things on here. You'll notice at the top, we have some basic things that relate to cases, but we're actually gonna get into this when we get to the case records themselves. The first kind of initial setup that you would do for cases is actually down here. We have case profiles. So these are basically templates, and I'll even open up the listing of this. So we have profiles, rules, territories, and we even have escalation rules down here. So let me talk about each one of these. Starting off with profiles. Profiles basically your overall template for how you handle support cases. And there's not that much information that goes into it. If you see here, if we open up this kind of generic one, you have certain things like you attribute it to certain email addresses. It can be attributed to certain subsidiaries. It's just an overall template that you're going to be using for your support. And oftentimes you'll just have one profile. If you have more elaborate needs, you may have a reason to have multiple, especially if you have different subsidiaries that handle cases differently using different email addresses, etc. You may want to have multiple profiles, but for one subsidiary, oftentimes you'll just have one basic profile. But it is mandatory. You definitely need to have a profile, as opposed to some of these other things I'm going to show you, which I'm going to point out in a second, are actually not mandatory, but you can use them. So for example, case field rules. This is where you can come in and you can create not just one, but you can get many rules dictating how the support system is going to go. So when a certain type of email comes in from a particular type of client or based on a particular type of thing, you can tell it to do certain actions and create those rules that formulate what happens next based on the situation. So you can come in here, you can detail these rules. Now I could go into detail and give you some common examples and show you exactly how you would formulate those rules. But to be totally honest, the vast majority of properly set up support case configurations that I've seen done by actually qualified consultants, they actually don't use these rules, and they don't use some of the other things I'm about to show you. They use just normal workflow functionality, because all of these rules and kind of dictates in terms of how it's going to work, all of that can be specified in normal workflows. And most good consultants are already really familiar with workflows and can do whatever you need from a support case standpoint. And frankly, most consultants are actually not familiar with exactly what rules you need to configure here, because this structure is a little bit more rigid in terms of how you're going to create and kind of formulate how that system's going to work. So most consultants just avoid this entirely. If you are doing it on your own and you're not familiar with workflows at all, I would recommend you can play around with it and see if you can set up something that fulfills your needs. But generally speaking, workflows are going to get the job done more efficiently. So that's for case rules. There's also the concept of territories. So a common thing that you would set up for support cases is that based on either where the email's coming from, where the customer's from, that kind of thing, it might go to a specific support rep or a specific group of support reps. You can also come in here and create these case territories. So you can have your Western United States or Eastern United States. You can have these general geographic regions that will receive support emails, or I should say have emails and different support tickets that come in will automatically be assigned to them. You also have this field escalation rules. So this is a specific type of rule. If you see, if I click on new rule, it still gives a long list of kind of possible categories this can relate to, but this is no longer just for how the support cases get treated. This is how they get moved up the escalation ladder. So maybe it starts with a support rep. At a certain point, it goes to the support manager. Then it might even go up to a higher executive at the organization. You can dictate those escalations here. Again, generally speaking, for most effectively created support systems that I've seen, it's done just with workflows, not using these escalation rules, but they are here if you want to utilize them. Moving on from that, so let's say that you've either used these rules, profiles, etc., all of that, or you've configured the appropriate workflows. Once that's all set up, you also have your preferences. So if we go to setup, down to support, we have here our support preferences. Let's open this up in a separate window. And coming to this, there's a lot of different little features and minor things that you can configure here. There's really just two main things I want to point out, which is your inbound email. This is going to be attached to a profile. And basically, when someone emails this email address, it's going to create a support case automatically in the system. So this is kind of your receipt point for all support tickets. And again, this can be designated on the profile. And you also have over here under general, this is where you're going to dictate the default case profile that's going to be used. So you can, as you're going to see in a second, on individual support cases, you can change the profile, but overall, this is what's going to be utilized. This is where that email address we just saw comes from. And then we have some other pretty straightforward other preferences. So you can look through those. You can see if any are applicable to your requirements. But in general, there's not that much you need to kind of mess around here. Just make sure everything is aligned with your requirements. And from there, let's actually take a look at one of our support cases. So we're going to come up here to lists, down to support, and we have cases. So let's create a new case. And I'll just walk through the fields and give you a basic concept of how this thing is configured. Now, this has a lot of fields on it. You can customize these support cases so they have more or less fields on them, but this is kind of the generic form. So at least you can be aware of what would normally come kind of out of the box with your support case system. So first off, you have just kind of the form that you're using. So this is the standard case form I'm using right now. You then, of course, have the profile. In this particular case, let's set it as Customer Abbott Inc. So with that selected, it fills in some automatic information like the subsidiary, and based on that, it then was able to assign the profile, and it filled in some additional information from the customer like the phone number, etc. It also defaults things like the incident date at the bottom, right? It generally will go with the current date. If you have a reason to specify it differently, you can. And then you can come in here and you can start kind of building out what is included in this case. So first off, what is the subject of it? So this is just where you come in and you put, what am I calling this particular support case that I'm creating? Now, in terms of things like assign to, this is something you would commonly set up either with rules or with a workflow where you say, again, based on the circumstance, this is going to go to this specific either support case representative, like a customer service rep, or to a particular support service group. Contact, obviously, if there's a particular contact individual you want tied to that, you can put that in. Like I said, it fills in their email, their phone. So you have statuses. We can come in here. It's got these default statuses like not started, in progress, kind of like where is this support case along the progression. If you don't like these statuses that come out of the box, you can always come up here to setup. Under support, we have the ability to create unique statuses. You can remove ones that already exist. You can create new ones. And you're going to see there's other things like priorities, types, origin types, issues. I'm going to explain all these in a second. But as I walk through these, understand you can make any kind of customized ones you want where I just showed you. So down from that, we have the priority. That's pretty straightforward. Is this low, medium, high? Again, you can create other priorities if you want. You can put in a quick note, kind of like a little memo line. There's going to be more information down below, but if you want just something simple up top, you can put that in there. Down from there, we have the incident information. In other words, what is this thing tied to? So let's say there is an AC unit that broke and we are responsible for servicing that. Let's say we have a warranty with our customers. So we could think with some of the information we might want to put in here. You can assign it to a particular item. So that can be useful for reporting purposes and also just for technicians that come along and say, oh, this is the item we're dealing with. I know what tools we're going to need. And especially if you're using something like field service management, where you've got a much more comprehensive system and you're going to be tying it not just to a type of item, but a very specific one. Like we know the exact AC unit and the serial number for that AC unit for that particular customer. We can even put in that serial number here. You then have things like type. So what type of support thing is this? Is it just a customer asking a question? Is it a particular problem or concern they're running into? Again, if you have other types of issues that come up on support, you can make whatever custom types you want. And then the case issue, let's say it's a concern. We can then come in here to case issue, and the case issue is going to be tied to the type. So based on concern, what is the concern? In this case, there's only one: software not working. We could have 15 if we want, whatever is relevant for your particular business and the kinds of support tickets that get input. We also have the origin. So we can specify, and we can make configurations and workflows that kind of automatically fill this in. But if you don't otherwise have it automated, you might want to come in here and say, well, the person called in, or we received an email from them, they put in a web form, whatever the circumstance was, we can specify that here. Down from that, we also have support level. So this would be relevant to the customer's support level if you have them. So if you have them pay for packages that give them a bronze support level, or in this case, you have platinum would be the highest level, it would dictate for you, and it would give you information for how you handle it, potentially even how you bill the customer for that support case if there is billing required. Down from that, we get to the communication. So this is pretty straightforward. Incoming from the customer, this is really just what did the customer give us as communication. If it was a phone call, we'd give a brief explanation of what they dictated to us. And if it was from an email, we could even have it automated where it just fills in the actual message from the email straight in here. Then we come down here and we get into what is going to be our response out to the customer, especially from an email standpoint. So you can see here under solution, you can have these you can think about like templates or pre-configured responses to the customer. This is really common in support systems where you can just have your automated response of, oh, they're saying they can't log in. Here's our explanation of how to log in. So you can come in here, you can create a new solution here. You can also do it up above in the setup support section I showed you earlier. You can create as many solutions as you want. And that's kind of something I generally recommend clients take a little bit of time to build that out and make sure that they have something that's comprehensive for them. But once that is built out, you'd then be able to select the correct solution. It would fill in down here. You can also just freeform type whatever is relevant and that you want to explain to your customer, or add or modify the solution as needed. You can also have it here. This can either be internal only, so this is kind of what we want to say to them, but we're not going to actually send it, as opposed to send to customer. Like literally this is going to get emailed from the system to the customer. And in the other locations, we've configured what is that email address that is going to be going to that particular customer. And we can info and copy in particular other maybe support managers or representatives as needed here. Now down from that, we have some basic information, like we can attach in phone calls, tasks, kind of like the basic activities that you have in NetSuite natively. But that's all quite straightforward. So moving back up to the top here, this is the communications tab, and we have some other pretty straightforward tabs as well, like related records. So here you can come in, you can tie this support case to maybe even the original sales order or invoice that customer has, or potentially even invoices from routine billing that are going on. It might be tied to that. You can attach and kind of make this in relation to whatever other record that you particularly want. You then have escalations. So again, you can make escalation rules, you can make workflows to create that, and you can also come in here and specify a kind of escalation procedure manually for this particular support case. So you can say, who is it going to be escalating to? What is their contact info? All of that can be built out. And the last tab we have over on the right here, Open Air. This is also known as Suite Projects Pro currently. So if you are tying the Suite Projects Pro, which used to be known as Open Air, that projects element to your support cases, then you would be able to go into that tab and connect up any relevant information. So that's really the basics of the support cases themselves. The last thing I want to point out is if we come up here and go to list, we can take a look at our full list of support cases in the system, and it brings us to a pretty straightforward save search in relation to cases. So you can see we have things like subject, priority, status, etc. You can customize this save search as you can with any of them. The one thing in particular I want to point out here is this grab option. So like we've talked about earlier, you can create rules, you can create workflows that dictate where cases are going to get assigned, but if there's a case that is unassigned, anyone who has the capability on their employee record and they're designated as a support representative, they have the ability to come in here and they can grab cases. So the idea is if you've got some cases stacked up that have not been assigned, either because there's no rules created or because it didn't fit into an existing rule, then the support rep should be able to come in here and say, oh, that's one that I can handle. Great, I'm going to grab that. It immediately assigns it to whatever employee clicks the grab button. So that's a very simple way to just come in here. This is even a portlet you can have as a support rep on your dashboard, and you can go in and you can hit grab. Great, that immediately comes to you, and you can now handle that support case appropriately. All right, so that is a quick look at support cases in NetSuite. Now, overall, when it comes to support cases and its functionality in the system, first off, it is a free module. So it's certainly, if you have a requirement for support cases and you don't want to pay for some kind of third-party app, I mean, it's already there for you. And I find with clients that if it's used properly, and by properly, I generally mean in a restrained fashion, so you don't try to do too much with it, it can be perfectly great. It can be satisfactory for basic requirements. The problem with it is when people try to push the envelope in terms of what you can do with NetSuite's native support case capability. So keep in mind, it's not sophisticated, it's not comprehensive, it's not a good fit if you need very fast customer service, you need something that's highly customized or highly automated. It just doesn't have that kind of functionality in the system as it is. You probably want to take a look at some other software like Freshdesk, have it out of the system, or maybe even try to integrate it in with NetSuite, instead of using just the normal support cases that you get out of the box. Where I see support cases shine the most is, again, when people are restrained in its use. So if they know they just have limited customer service requirements and they keep it simple, whether they're going to use the rules and escalations, etc., or they want to build it out in workflows, they still keep it on the simple side. And then the second best use of support cases is in utilization with FSM, or field service management. Field service management can be utilized in connection with projects functionality, and it's commonly done that way. I actually recommend, for many reasons, which I can get into in other videos, that instead of using it with projects, it actually tends to be better if you use it in connection with support case records. It can be better from a billing standpoint. There's all kinds of reasons that tends to actually be a cleaner setup than trying to go down the projects route. So that's my kind of general assessment of support cases. I hope this video was helpful for you. If so, please hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. So with all that in mind, I hope to see you in the next video.